There are a few things in life more surreal than sitting on your porch at sunrise with a fresh mug of coffee thinking you've finally carved out a patch of peace for yourself, only to have that moment shattered by a mud-splattered ATV barreling across your pasture, nearly colliding with your favorite goat. That was the day I learned what real unfiltered entitlement looks like. Picture this Karen Platinum Bob bouncing designer sunglasses glued to her nose, not a care in the world, blasting country music so loud it sent my chickens into a full-on riot. She just sailed right through, no wave, no flinch, tearing up my trail like she owned the place. The kicker: that was just her first lap. By round 3, my livestock had stampeded for shelter. My dog had disappeared under the truck, and I was left there gripping my empty mug, trying to convince myself this was a one-time episode of neighborly stupidity. It wasn't. This was a declaration of war. See, I bought this ranch to get away from all that suburban noise and HOA drama. My land backed up to some fancy development, and sure, every now and then someone wandered a little too close. Most were harmless. But then Karen moved in. She wasn't just a new neighbor. She was the self-appointed president, sheriff, and queen of her HOA, saw every fence as a mere suggestion. The first time she spotted the old dirt trail at the edge of her yard, my trail, mind you, you could just see the wheels spinning in her mind like she'd discovered a new wing of her kingdom. No courtesy call, no heads up, just her and her ATV making herself right at home. First time it happened, I figured, hey, maybe she's clueless. So I went over, knocked politely, tried to keep things friendly. She barely cracked the door, gave me that look like I was there to sell her a timeshare. I let her know calmly that the trail was private, not open for vehicles. She smirked and goes, "That trail's more useful to me than you. My ATV needs space and your cows can share." Then she slammed the door in my face, no room for discussion. I swear I stood there a full minute trying to process whether I'd really just heard that. Next weekend it got worse. She brought friends. 2 more ATVs. They tore through like it was a motocross event, spooked every animal I owned, knocked over a feeder, trampled my irrigation, and clipped the gate. I put up a sign, "Private property, no ATVs, violators will be prosecuted." Next morning I found it squashed under a tire right next to a tossed latte cup and a half-eaten sandwich. Karen had turned my land into her picnic circuit. At that point I started documenting everything, trail cams, letters, even reached out to the HOA just to see if they'd rein her in. Instead, I get an official letter signed by Karen herself saying the dispute was settled and I was expected to remove dangerous animals from what she now called a shared recreational corridor. I almost choked. Dangerous animals? My pigs barely get up unless there's food, and my cows nap through thunderstorms. I tried a new approach, installed a heavy-duty gate, steel mesh and all. 2 days later, lock-busted hinges, bent tire tracks everywhere, and no joke, a sparkly pink hair clip left like a calling card. That's when something inside me snapped. I'd played nice, I'd tried reason, but there's a saying in ranch life, sometimes mud and chaos are the only language some folks understand. Lucky for me, I had plenty of both. That night, I rerouted the trail, angled it through the pig enclosure, the rankest, sloppiest part of the ranch. My nephews call it the stank zone. Nobody, and I mean nobody, willingly crosses it. I baited it with watermelon for the pigs, watered the mud to extra soupy levels, put up some reflective tape to lure her in, and left the private sign exactly where it was, knowing full well she'd ignore it. For Karen, half the thrill was proving she could outsmart someone. Sure enough, 2 days later, engines roar. Not just Karen, she'd brought her HOA crony Rick, the guy who thinks wearing loafers on a ranch makes him country. They hit that new curve, slammed right into the muck, and the pigs, drawn by the smell, came running. High-pitched, shrieking ATVs stuck halfway to China, Karen losing her phone in the slop, Rick's tire getting chewed by a pig who thought it was a toy. I stood by the barn, sipped my coffee, and watched the show unfold. But Karen, she was just getting started. After the Pigsty fiasco, things got real quiet. No more ATVs, no new tire tracks, not even a nasty note. Even the pigs seemed disappointed. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd gotten the hint. That lasted until Thursday. I hear the rumble, 4 ATVs, Karen leading the charge helmet off for maximum hair drama, with 3 more HOA board members behind her. One filming with a GoPro like this was the X Games. They didn't even try to hide it, flags with the HOA logo matching shirts the whole parade. And then get this, she posted it on Facebook. spun her pig wallow disaster into a badge of honor, called it a new community trailblazing adventure. Comments flooded in. People actually wanted to join. The absurdity was off the charts. That evening, I got an HOA violation notice in the mail accused of negligent containment of aggressive livestock and unauthorized barriers. Karen fined me on my own land for her own trespassing. That's when I knew this wasn't just an annoying neighbor. This was an empire builder. I called Deputy Vince. He's helped me during rodeo season, showed him the letter. He laughed till he nearly dropped his radio, but admitted legally it was slippery. They weren't demanding entry, just fining me for uncooperative behavior. Vince said I had two choices: lawyer up or give them enough rope to hang themselves. I liked option 2. So I built a new express lane, laid down clean hay, then a camouflage trench filled with fertilizer made it look like a shortcut. Set up a fake checkpoint, trail cams rolling, and a handmade sign, Karen's Express Lane VIP only. My pigs, meanwhile, were conditioned to associate engine noise with treats. Duke, the cleverest, even started watching for ATVs. Gave him a bell collar just for fun. That weekend, Karen rolled in with a full entourage, 7 people, 2 kids, 1 guy with a drone. They cheered, filmed, even yelled yeehaw like they were pioneers. Then they hit the trench. Karen made it, the kid behind her didn't. ATV faceplants, fertilizer everywhere, pigs trotting over Duke's bell, ringing like the start of a parade. Pandemonium. The drone crashed into a slop bucket. A woman screamed about health codes, and Karen, caked in muck, tried to rally them, but nobody was buying it. I strolled over, tipped my hat, pointed to my sign, warning active livestock area, enter at your own risk, and to my cameras. Karen, fuming, accused me of sabotage, but she couldn't deny what was on tape. That night the tide turned. Her Facebook post was just a vague whine about environmental hazards, and people started questioning why the HOA was even on private land. Some posted the drone footage. Others asked about the HOA budget. Where did the money for flags, shirts, and drones come from? Someone even made a meme of Duke, the mudslinging pig, and overnight he became more popular than Karen ever was. Next day, the HOA group chat exploded. Karen tried to defend herself with paragraphs of HOA policy and community access rights, but the more she said, the more unhinged she sounded. That's when Gerald, the local vet, showed up at my gate. Turns out he'd filmed part of the Pigsty fiasco, uploaded it as a joke, and now reporters were calling him for interviews. We laughed about how wild it had gotten, but Gerald was right. If I wanted this done, now was the time to go on the offensive. So I did. Lawyered up, sent a cease and desist with photos, GPS maps, survey documents, and an affidavit from the previous landowner, bulletproof proof that the trail was never ever HOA land. I sent a copy to Karen, one to the HOA list. Didn't add a word of commentary. Within days, resignations rolled in. Rick, the GoPro guy, Susan, the parade cheerleader, even members I didn't know by name. Karen tried to spin it as new leadership rotation, but her power was gone. Someone even left a framed photo of Duke with a medal on my porch, along with a thank you note from the Anti-Karen Coalition. Karen's last stand was a town hall meeting, a fiasco from start to finish. A neighbor described it as a cross between a reality show meltdown and a roast. The projector glitched and showed a frozen frame of Karen stuck in the trench. Someone played the Pig remix ringtone, and the meeting ended with Karen storming out red-faced, muttering about community disrespect. Next day, a petition circulated to remove her as president, over 100 signatures in a day. Stories of her bullying and fines poured out. My job was just to keep quiet and watch the rebellion grow. You know what's wild? It wasn't even me who took her down. It was her own pride and a pig, with more common sense than half the board. By the end of the week, her front yard was a silent protest zone, fake trail maps, pig signs, stickers on trucks. When the HOA newsletter finally arrived without her name anywhere, it was official: her reign was over. But of course, she had to have the last word. I got served at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. Karen suing me for malicious endangerment, emotional distress, and environmental sabotage. 50 grand in damages, demanded a permanent easement for her trail. Her lawyer, Tad Blitzen, sounded like a used car salesman and wrote like one too. But my attorney, Hannah, loved a good land fight. Court day media in the gallery, Gerald wearing a hog justice hat, Karen dressed for a funeral. Judge Douglas, tough as nails, asked if I had pigs, nodded approvingly, and basically torched Karen's whole argument. Hannah laid out the evidence. The judge asked Karen if she'd ever read the HOA bylaws. She hadn't, and then delivered the verdict. That's like breaking into someone's house and blaming them for the furniture. Case dismissed, restraining order issued. Karen told never to set foot on my land again. That was the death blow. Within a week, the board voted her out. An audit found she'd misused funds, and the finance officer quit. The neighborhood threw a not-so-secret trail boss barbecue cartoon pigs on the invite, kids begging to pet Duke, everyone swapping stories of how Karen had run their lives. The laughter that day said it all. People could finally breathe again. A few weeks later, Angela, the new HOA president, showed up. She wore boots that meant business, apologized for everything, and offered to split the cost of a new fence. When the work finished, there was a clear, respected boundary for the first time ever. The neighborhood changed, people put out decorations, kids rode bikes. Nobody cared about silly rules anymore. On my ranch, things returned to normal. Duke went back to being a mud-loving celebrity, and I got a handmade sign, Trail Boss Ranch, from the neighbors who once feared speaking out. Karen sent a final letter, no apology, just blame, and moved out. Life settled. The land was peaceful, the animals happy, and the neighborhood finally learned where one person's authority ends and another's begins. Sometimes all it takes is a stubborn rancher, a lawyer with bite, and a pig with a bell collar to remind everyone respect is a two-way street. So if you're ever wondering if it's worth standing your ground, just ask Duke. Because when the sun sets over a quiet trail and the only sound is a pig jingling his bell, you know you did something right. So what do you think? Who was in the right? Who went too far? And what would you have done if the HOA rolled through your backyard? Let me know down in the comments, because this, my friends, is how you turn mud into justice.